the New England Patriots. The Patriots have been dominating the AFC East for how many years? This is the first year that they're in a position in the offseason where they got to catch up. The Patriots have to catch up, and especially on the offensive side of the football. So these are some major free agents from the Patriots that are going to hit the market. They have over 26 total free agents, but these are the ones that I think are the most notable, and they're going to, their loss is going to be felt if they leave. That's Joe Thuney, Jason McCourty, James White, David Andrews, Lawrence Guy, Adam Butler, Cam Newton, and J.C. Jackson. So the Patriots have a lot of cap space this offseason, but they also have a lot of notable free agents that are going to be free agents this offseason. So a lot of the money is going to go to that. So if I'm the Patriots, the first thing I do is that I re-sign Joe Thuney back, like no doubt about it. You re-sign David Andrews too, and you re-sign J.C. Jackson, who was possibly their best corner when Stephon Gilmore went out this past season. Everybody else for me can go. Cam Newton didn't show enough to warrant another opportunity with the Patriots this upcoming season. Lawrence Guy, not that big of a deal. Adam Butler, he's good. They should look to bring him back as well. James White, the Patriots don't really bring back running backs past their first contract, so I think he's gone too. They can find a better one in the draft or free agency. And for me, of course, their defense is going to be good because of Bill Belichick. You got to address the offense. You got to get receivers. For me, in free agency, they've been linked to Marvin Jones Jr. So I'd go and sign Marvin Jones Jr. And there's also other guys. You can go with Curtis Samuel, who's a speedster. Maybe they sign Hunter Henry. And then on the defensive side of the ball, since you're losing Lawrence Guy and Adam Butler, maybe they go Kenny Clark. They steal him from the Packers, a very good defensive tackle. They go Kenny Clark or Yannick Ngakoue. I think those two would be huge additions to their defense. But obviously, the main thing the Patriots have to prioritize this offseason is bringing in wide receivers. And I think you got to start with Marvin Jones Jr. or Curtis Samuel or having them both. Having them both would be huge.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Cam Newton comes back this season at the quarterback position. He was probably statistically the worst quarterback in the NFL last season. It was worth the shot. You know, who knows if he had gone back to the level that he played in Carolina, the Patriots could have been in the race for the division, but it didn't work out. I think they move on from him, and I think they look to draft a quarterback. I don't know if he'll start immediately. Maybe they get a guy like Mac Jones or Kyle Trask with their first round pick. Another guy that I would look at in the later rounds, Kellen Mond. He had a great day at the Senior Bowl, and a lot of his stock has definitely risen up. And I think you could get him later on in the draft without taking him in the first round. So one of those guys is a name I would look at the quarterback position. The problem is I don't know what they do at quarterback next year, whether they want to bring in a veteran, maybe a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, or not necessarily him, but somebody who could just come in, hold over the position for a year, or if they want to give Jarrett Stidham another shot. I personally don't believe in him whatsoever. I feel like it would be a waste, but I don't know if any of those names that I mentioned in the draft would be ready to go from day one. So I think they should look at a bridge quarterback or a veteran quarterback to come in and take next year. But I do think they should look to draft one of those three guys with their pick situation. Then looking at free agents, starting on the offensive line, Joe Thuney and David Andrews, I would look to bring both of them back. They're such huge parts of this team, great veteran leaders, and those are two guys that I would definitely look into bringing back. On the Lawrence Guy, give or take, I feel like they should look into bringing him back, but only at a certain price tag. And same thing with Adam Butler. I think that Adam Butler was kind of a hidden gem for them, and I would personally bring him back over Lawrence Guy. But J.C. Jackson is really the guy they need to bring back. I know there's been rumors floating around about Stephon Gilmore and what his status is going to be. People were talking about him being a potential trade deadline target this season, and who knows if that extends over into next season. But bringing back J.C. Jackson would at least give you that formidability that if you do want to trade Stephon Gilmore, you can do that and still have a guy like J.C. Jackson in that secondary. So I feel like bringing him back is very important. But you hit the nail right on the head. The wide receiver position is the place to go. Who was their number one this season? Jacoby Myers. They didn't really have any formidable. Yeah, Damiere Byrd. They didn't really have any great receivers this season. And with such a deep free agency class at the wide receiver position, I feel like they need to go out and get at least one, if not two, of those top guys. Whether it's, a guy like a Corey Davis, I feel like would be a nice addition for them. You mentioned Marvin Jones, who's been linked to them. I feel like would be a nice addition. And then maybe look towards the second tier targets to bring in a second wide receiver. But if I were them, I would look at bringing in two wide receivers, because that position group was very poor for them this past season. And if you're going to bring in, especially if you're going to bring in a rookie quarterback, you're not giving them any chance at all if you're bringing back the same weapons that you had last year. You're, like I said about Jared Goff before, you're throwing them off the ship with no life vest, and that's no situation to succeed in for a rookie quarterback.
So for me, I misspoke. Kenny Clark actually re-signed with the Packers, so they can't sign him. But I think Mac Jones is ready day one. I think he would be ready day one. I think his preparation is there. And he's a very hard worker. I think he'll be ready day one, especially in an offense like the Patriots, which is just predicated on the quick passing game. For me, I would not even think about drafting Kyle Trask with the first-round pick. I would not even think about it. Maybe in the later rounds, yeah. Kellen Mond is cool, but I'm not that high on Kellen Mond, even though he did win Senior Bowl MVP. I'm not high on him at all. I think quarterback targets for me would be Jacoby Brissett, bringing him back to reunite. He knows the offense, so, the Patriots love familiarity. I think bringing Jacoby Brissett would be back. Another option would be, of course, trading back for Jimmy Garoppolo. And guys also, Tyrod Taylor, he's an option as well. I think he can do what Cam Newton did last year at a higher level, especially with better weapons. And maybe they want to give Mitch Trubisky a tryout. Mitch Trubisky is very good in terms of the short passing game. He's not a very good deep thrower, but that's what Josh McDaniels' offense is. Maybe they take a gamble on a guy like Mitch Trubisky, who does have talent, who can run as well, and maybe they see what happens with that.
I actually don't hate the idea of Mitch Trubisky at all. In fact, I actually really like that idea for the Patriots, and I didn't even think of that as a plausible option, but he's a guy that showed some signs last year. I'm not too high on him, but he showed signs last year and earlier in his career that he has the talent to be a legit quarterback in this league. And I don't think it would take that much to bring him in based on his track record of inconsistency. So I feel like that would be a great option at the quarterback position. Even if you bring him in and it doesn't work out and you get a quarterback in the later rounds this year, and it could give a little buffer time for that rookie quarterback to, get some experience on the bench. Another position I think they should target to improve, tight end. I don't think they need to make a huge splash. A guy we talked about before, I think it might have been for the Bills, Gerald Everett, or even a guy like Jonnu Smith from the Titans. Just somebody like that. It doesn't have to be some huge splash signing. Obviously, Hunter Henry would be the guy that you would love to have. I think he's the crown jewel of tight end targets this free agency. But even if it's a lower tier piece, I think guys like that would make an impact at the tight end position. You saw how big of a role tight ends have played for them in the past, whether it was Aaron Hernandez, Rob Gronkowski. So bringing in a good tight end would really help out that offense.
Another one could be Jared Cook Jr. The Saints aren't going to bring him back, and he's older, but he's still a pretty decent tight end. And for me, at the 15th pick, which is where the Patriots are going to be picking, I would pick Mac Jones. That's if they don't get a quarterback in free agency, because I think if they get Jacoby Brissett or Jimmy G, then they go in a different direction. But I will say this is an exception. If Micah Parsons is at that 15th overall pick, you draft him. He's a top 5 talent in this draft. He might slip down a lot because there have been some character issues with him that have come out. So he might slip in this draft. If he's at 15th, what better place to go than the Patriots, who they take risk on guys with character issues all the time. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think Micah Parsons is a top 5 talent in this draft. And I think he's a game-changing talent at the linebacker position. Dante Hightower is getting older, so Micah Parsons would be a cheap option to replace him. I think if he's there at 15, you go get him. Or you can go get Patrick Surtain II from Alabama as well. It really depends on what the Patriots want to do. But we all know they should possibly get a quarterback, but maybe they're not high on anybody in this draft and they just want to sign somebody in free agency. Jacoby Brissett, Mitchell Trubisky, one of those guys, we don't know. But, there are options here. But if at 15 Micah Parsons is there and they have a veteran quarterback, you draft Micah Parsons.
Yeah, and that's a great call on Parsons. Like you said, if there's anywhere you would want to go as a guy with character issues, the Patriots are the place. You could go down the line over the last few years of guys they've brought in with character issues, and a bunch of them they've been able to set straight. Some of them haven't worked out, but that's a great place to be under Bill Belichick on a pretty solid – that defense is always going to be solid. Bill Belichick is one of the greatest defensive minds, of our generation. So I feel like that would be a good landing spot. I have a feeling they're going to go with Mac Jones. Even though I'm not too high on him, I feel like the Patriots system is one where he could really work out. Like that would be one of the places I would feel better about him going. And you mentioned Patrick Surtain being a potential pick for them. If they get him and they re-sign J.C. Jackson, then you could really look at moving Stephon Gilmore. You would have Surtain to learn under J.C. Jackson. And I think that for Stephon Gilmore, you could get a haul of whether it's picks or talent to add on to this team. And I think it might be a wise decision for them with the position they're in right now. And I know that there's a team out there, a contending team out there that would overpay for Stephon Gilmore the way the Seahawks did with the Jets for Jamal Adams. If teams think they're that one piece away, they will give up a lot to get an all-pro corner like Stephon Gilmore. Look at Jalen Ramsey to the Rams. It is a similar situation. So that could be an interesting way of going about it. Not only do you get Patrick Surtain, but maybe you move up in the draft and you're looking at a guy like Trey Lance. So I think it'll be interesting to see which direction they go in here. But this is the most rebuilding we've seen the Patriots in my lifetime, probably. So I'm excited to see how they go with it.
I mean, this is the first time in forever where the Patriots have to think about their quarterback, right? So it's a real question. Like, do you go after receivers because you need receivers to make your quarterback successful, or do you go after that quarterback? It's really a toss-up for me, without a doubt. This offseason for the Patriots is about building that offense